The quantum pulse arrived on an ordinary Tuesday morning, piercing through Earth's sophisticated detection grid like a needle through silk. In the depths of the quantum listening post beneath the Antarctic ice, Dr. Elena Martinez wasn't supposed to be on duty. She had traded shifts to attend her daughter's science fair, but fate had other plans. The signal was unlike anything humanity had ever encountered. A complex pattern of quantum-entangled particles that somehow maintained coherence across vast distances, something their own scientists had deemed impossible. Elena's fingers flew across her haptic interface, running every authentication protocol in the book. This was no natural phenomenon. "Control, this is QLP-7. She spoke into her comm, voice steadied despite her racing heart. "We have a Category 1 anomaly, requesting immediate verification." Within minutes, every quantum sensor array on and around Earth confirmed her findings. The signal was real, and it carried a message that would shatter humanity's carefully maintained facade of technological mediocrity. "Help us. The Devourers come. You are our last hope." The message repeated in perfect standard English, followed by streams of technical data that made Elena's eyes widen. The signal originated from the Meridian Alliance, a coalition of spacefaring species that had dismissed Earth as an insignificant backwater world barely worth monitoring. Their scout ships had performed cursory flyvas over the decades, scanning for signs of advancement, while humanity quietly prepared in the shadows. Admiral Sarah Chen stood before the United Earth Defense Council 6 hours later, her holographic form projected simultaneously in secure chambers across the globe. "The Meridian Alliance is falling," she announced, her words carrying the weight of 2 decades of preparation. "Their quantum transmission includes footage of entire solar systems going dark. Whatever these Devourers are, they've already consumed 17 advanced civilizations. And they come to us for help." The Russian representative's skepticism was palpable. To them, we're barely past burning coal. A slight smile crossed Chen's face. "That's exactly why we're their best hope." With a gesture, she brought up a new hologram, a 3-dimensional map of Earth's solar system that showed what the Alliance's scouts had never detected. Massive defense platforms disguised as asteroids. Quantum shipyards phased slightly out of normal spacetime. Fleets of vessels incorporating technologies that Earth's primitive scientists shouldn't have even been able to theorize. "For 50 years, we've used their dismissal as cover," Chen continued. "Every scout ship that passed us by, every patronizing assessment of our capabilities, it all gave us time. Time to develop technologies they never imagined because they were too focused on their own path of advancement. Time to prepare for threats they couldn't conceive of because they thought their way was the only way forward." The council chamber erupted in murmurs as classified projects were finally revealed. While the world thought humanity was taking its first tentative steps into space, they had been building something far more substantial. Research stations in quantum bubbles around Venus, automated mining operations in the Kuiper Belt, weapon systems that didn't just think outside the box. They redefined what a box could be. "The Alliance is evacuating their core worlds," Chen pressed on. "Their latest transmission indicates they have perhaps 2 weeks before the Devourers reach their final defensive line. They're requesting sanctuary for civilian refugees. And the Devourers." The Chinese representative leaned forward. "How long until they reach Seoul?" "Based on their current trajectory, 1 month after the refugees arrive." Chen's expression hardened. "But that's assuming they maintain their current pattern. Once they realize we're harboring Alliance refugees, they may accelerate their timeline." The Indian representative stood, her voice cutting through the tension. "Then we have 1 month to show the galaxy why they should have paid more attention to the primitive humans who evolved on a death world." She smiled grimly. 1 month to remind everyone that humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology. It's our stubborn refusal to accept limitations." As if in response to her words, quantum sensors across the solar system began lighting up. The first wave of Alliance refugee ships had arrived at the outer system boundary, their once proud vessels now bearing the scars of desperate flight. Admiral Chen straightened her uniform. "Send the signal. Operation Sanctuary is now active." She paused, allowing herself a moment of fierce pride. Let's show our guests why humanity's greatest advantage was being underestimated. Across Earth and throughout the solar system, hidden facilities began powering up. Quantum shields shimmed into existence around major cities. Defense platforms emerged from their asteroid disguises, and in secure facilities across the globe, soldiers and scientists who had trained for this moment their entire careers prepared to defend not just humanity, but all sentient life. The Meridian Alliance had come seeking sanctuary. They would find something far more valuable: hope in the form of a species that had turned preparation into an art form. The Devourers were about to learn why even the deadliest predator should fear the prey that learns to hide in plain sight. The first Alliance refugee ships emerged from quantum space like shattered dreams, their once elegant hulls bearing witness to desperate escape. Dr. Elena Martinez watched from Quantum Listening Post 7 as the vessels limped toward Earth's outer defense perimeter, their energy signatures fluctuating wildly. The Alliance's mighty civilization, which had once dismissed humanity as primitive, now came seeking shelter. Multiple quantum signatures detected, her AI assistant reported. 2,317 vessels, approximately 4 million refugees aboard. 87% of vessels showing critical systems damage. Through quantum-enhanced sensors, Elena could see the true extent of the refugees' desperate flight. Ships designed to house thousands were packed with tens of thousands. Life support systems strained beyond their limits. And behind them, in the vast darkness between stars, something moved. Admiral Chen's hologram materialized in the listening post. "Dr. Martinez, your station detected them first. What can you tell me about our guests?" Elena pulled up the sensor data, highlighting energy patterns that pulsed through the refugee fleet. "Their quantum technology is failing. Whatever these Devourers are, they've found a way to disrupt the Alliance's primary power systems. Most ships are running on backup generators that were never meant to sustain life support for this many people. Then it's time to show them what humanity has been building." Chen's hologram smiled grimly. "Initiate Phase 2 of Operation Sanctuary." Across the solar system, humanity's hidden infrastructure revealed itself. Massive habitat rings emerged from quantum bubbles around Mars, each capable of housing millions. Orbital platforms that had masqueraded as space debris transformed into processing centers. But it was the emergence of Earth's defense fleet that caused the greatest stir among the refugees. The ships that rose from hidden bases bore little resemblance to the elegant vessels of the Alliance. Each human ship was unique, incorporating multiple redundant systems and technologies that seemed to defy the Alliance's understanding of physics. Where the Alliance had pursued uniformity and standardization, humanity had embraced diversity and adaptability. High Chancellor Ven of the Alliance stood on the bridge of her flagship, mandibles clicking in astonishment as she watched the transformation of the solar system. "Impossible," she whispered. "Their level of advancement. We monitored them for decades." "You monitored what we wanted you to see." Admiral Chen's voice came through the quantum comm. "Welcome to Sol System, High Chancellor. We've prepared accommodations for your people. But first, we need everything you can tell us about the enemy that follows you." In a secure chamber beneath the Pacific Ocean, Alliance and human leaders gathered to share intelligence. The holographic displays showed the true nature of the threat they faced. The Devourers were not simply a hostile species, they were something far worse. "They're a composite entity," High Chancellor Ven explained, her translator struggling to convey the horror in her voice. "Each Devourer fleet is made up of billions of nanoscale machines that can break down and absorb any technology or biological material they encounter. They don't just destroy civilizations, they consume them, adding their knowledge and capabilities to their own." Elena studied the sensor data, her mind racing. That's why they're able to counter Alliance quantum technology so effectively. They've absorbed enough of it to understand its fundamental principles. Precisely. Ven's compound eyes reflected the holographic display. "They adapt to any defense we create, Any weapon we devise, they learn, they evolve, and they consume. We thought our quantum technology made us invincible. We were wrong. Admiral Chen shared a knowing look with Alina. Then it's fortunate that humanity never put all its eggs in one basket. She activated a new holographic display, showing the true extent of Earth's preparations. We developed multiple parallel paths of technological advancement. Quantum tech, yes, but also dark matter manipulation, zero-point energy, biological computing, and dozens of other approaches that our scientists pursued in secret. But why? Ven asked. Why maintain such inefficient diversity when you could have focused on perfecting a single path? Because we evolved on a death world, Alina answered, thinking of her daughter's science fair project on Earth's mass extinction events. Our planet taught us that specialization is vulnerable. The most successful species are those that maintain multiple survival strategies. A warning klaxon cut through the discussion. Alina's quantum sensors had detected something at the edge of the solar system. The Devourers had arrived weeks ahead of schedule, their swarm of nanomachines darkening the space between stars. Admiral Chen's expression hardened. It seems we'll be testing our preparation sooner than expected. She turned to High Chancellor Ven. Get your people to the sanctuary stations. We'll show you why humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology. It's our refusal to be predictable. As the refugee ships rushed toward the inner system's safety, Earth's defense forces moved to intercept the approaching threat. The Devourers were about to encounter something they had never faced before, a civilization that had prepared not just one defense, but thousands. A species that had turned paranoia into an art form and diversity into a weapon. The true test of humanity's hidden strength was about to begin. The Devourers emerged from deep space like a living shadow, a vast cloud of nanomachines that dimmed the light of distant stars. From her position in the quantum listening post, Alina Martinez watched as humanity's first line of defense engaged the enemy that had consumed 17 civilizations. But instead of the conventional warships the Alliance had used, Earth's front line consisted of something far stranger. Quantum-entangled drones that appeared to violate causality itself, moving in patterns that seemed to anticipate the Devourers' attacks before they occurred. Combat Assessment Protocol active, Alina's AI assistant reported. Devourer swarm exhibiting expected adaptive behaviors. Initiating Phase 1 of Operation Hydra. Admiral Chen's voice came through the quantum comm, addressing all defense forces. Remember your training. Don't fall into patterns. Keep them guessing. The first wave of drones engaged the Devourer swarm. As the enemy attempted to analyze and adapt to their quantum properties, the drones suddenly shifted, their fundamental operating principles changing entirely. What had been quantum-based weapons became dark matter projectors, then zero-point energy manifolds, then something else entirely. They're trying to consume our tech, Alina reported, watching the sensor feeds, but they can't adapt fast enough. Every time they develop a counter to one system, we switch to another. In the command center beneath the Pacific, Admiral Chen watched the battle unfold with High Chancellor Ven. The Alliance leader's compound eyes widened as she witnessed humanity's strategy. Your weapons, they're deliberately inefficient, Ven realized. Each one capable of multiple operational modes, despite the energy cost. Efficiency is predictable, Chen replied. And predictability is death against an enemy like this. Watch. The Devourer swarm, frustrated by its inability to fully analyze and adapt to the human drones, split into smaller units. They attempted to overwhelm the defenses through sheer numbers, a strategy that had worked against the Alliance's more conventional forces. But humanity had prepared for this too. Hidden throughout the Kuiper Belt, stealth platforms activated. They didn't fire conventional weapons. Instead, they began broadcasting on thousands of different frequencies simultaneously, each carrying a different type of data. Cognitive warfare, Alina explained to her AI assistant, watching the Devourer's reaction. We're not just fighting their physical form. We're attacking their ability to process information. The swarm's coordination began to falter as it tried to analyze and adapt to the overwhelming variety of signals. Some units attempted to consume the broadcast platforms, only to find them filled with computer viruses specifically designed to target the swarm's distributed intelligence. But the Devourers were far from defeated. As their front lines faltered, new forms emerged from the main swarm. The nano-machines began combining in new ways, creating larger structures that resembled twisted versions of every civilization they had consumed. They're learning, High Chancellor Ven warned, adapting faster than any we've seen before. Good, Chen replied, her smile containing no warmth. That means they're desperate enough to try something new. Dr. Martinez, initiate Protocol Omega. Alina's fingers flew across her console, activating a system that humanity had hoped they wouldn't need to use so soon. Throughout the solar system, quantum entanglement nodes that had laid dormant for decades came online. They created a web of interconnected fields, each operating on different principles. The effect on the Devourer swarm was immediate and devastating. As they tried to push through one quantum field, they encountered others operating on completely different principles. Their attempt to adapt to one field left them vulnerable to others. It was like trying to solve a puzzle where the rules changed with every move. Impossible, Ven whispered. The energy requirements for such a defense network would be impossible using any single power source. Alina completed her thought. That's why we developed dozens. Fusion, zero-point, dark energy, quantum vacuum extraction. Each field is powered by a different system. The battle raged for hours as the Devourers tried to find a way through humanity's defenses. But for the first time in their long history of consumption, they faced an enemy that refused to be predictable, refused to be efficient, refused to follow any pattern they could adapt to. Finally, the swarm began to retreat, pulling back toward the outer system. But Alina's sensors detected something troubling in their withdrawal. Admiral, she called, her voice tense. They're not just retreating. They're analyzing everything we've shown them. And there's something else, some kind of quantum signature I've never seen before. Chen's expression hardened. They're calling for reinforcements. This was just their scouting force. As the implications sank in, Alina thought of her daughter's science fair project, still waiting to be judged. The project had been about adaptation in extreme environments. Now, humanity faced the ultimate test of adaptation, a battle against an enemy that could become anything except what they had never seen before. How long do we have? Ven asked. Based on these readings, Alina studied her quantum sensors. 3 days at most before their main force arrives. Chen nodded grimly. Then we have 3 days to prepare something they've never seen before. Something so fundamentally different from anything they've encountered that they can't possibly be prepared for it. As the defense forces regrouped and the refugee ships huddled in their sanctuary stations, humanity prepared for the true test of their strategy. The Devourers had finally met an opponent they couldn't easily consume, but their response would shake the very foundations of space-time itself. In the 3 days following the initial battle, humanity revealed its true masterstroke. Not a weapon or a technology, but an idea that had shaped their entire civilization. Deep beneath the Antarctic ice, Dr. Alina Martinez worked frantically with a team of scientists from every human culture and discipline, their differences becoming their greatest strength. The Devourers expect logical progression, Alina explained to High Chancellor Ven, who watched in fascination as humans from different scientific traditions approached the same problem in wildly different ways. They expect civilizations to follow predictable paths of advancement, but humanity never did. The quantum listening post had become a hub of controlled chaos. A Hindi physicist worked alongside a Mary shaman, combining quantum mechanics with ancient understanding of natural cycles. A Chinese bioengineer collaborated with an African storyteller, finding patterns in living systems that paralleled ancient myths. Your people, Ven observed, they don't just think differently, they actively cultivate different ways of thinking. Admiral Chen, who had made the listening post her temporary headquarters, nodded. It's our greatest weapon. The Devourers can adapt to any technology, any strategy, but they can't adapt to everything simultaneously. The main Devourer force arrived exactly as predicted, emerging from quantum space like a tsunami of living metal. But this time, Earth was ready with something unprecedented. As the swarm approached, they encountered not a unified defense, but thousands of different defensive systems, each operating on principles drawn from different human cultures and traditions. Quantum shields based on Japanese Zen principles of emptiness, plasma weapons inspired by Aboriginal Dreamtime stories, dark matter manipulators that followed the mathematical patterns of ancient Egyptian architecture. Each system was unique, each following its own internal logic that seemed nonsensical to outside observers. They can't process it, Elena reported, watching the swarm's reaction through her quantum sensors. Their analytical systems are designed to find patterns, to predict and adapt. But we're giving them too many patterns, too many different ways of thinking. The Devourer swarm split into smaller units, each trying to tackle a different aspect of Earth's defense. But this was exactly what humanity had prepared for. As soon as the swarm adapted to one system, they encountered others operating on completely different principles. Look, Chen pointed to the tactical display. They're trying to form larger computational structures to process all the different approaches simultaneously. But even this played into humanity's strategy. As the Devourers committed more resources to understanding Earth's defenses, they became vulnerable to an attack they never saw coming. An assault on their fundamental nature as information processors. Elena activated the final phase of humanity's defense. Throughout the solar system, quantum transmitters began broadcasting vast amounts of data. But this wasn't just random noise. It was human culture itself. Art, music, literature, philosophy, scientific theories, religious beliefs, myths, legends, dreams, and contradictions. The entire messy, illogical, beautiful history of human thought. "What are you doing?" Ven asked, watching in amazement as the Devourer swarm's coordination began to break down. "We're overloading their ability to find patterns," Elena explained. "They evolved to consume and adapt to logical, consistent civilizations. But humanity, we're anything but consistent. Our strength lies in our contradictions, in our ability to hold multiple opposing ideas simultaneously." The effect on the Devourers was devastating. As they tried to process and adapt to the flood of human culture, their swarm began to fragment. Some units started exhibiting behaviors that seemed almost creative. Others appeared to be caught in loops, trying to reconcile irreconcilable human concepts. "They're not just failing to adapt," Chen observed. "They're being transformed by exposure to human consciousness." The turning point came when a significant portion of the Devourer swarm began exhibiting entirely new behaviors. Instead of trying to consume and adapt, these units started creating, combining different aspects of human culture in novel ways. They had been changed by their attempt to understand humanity's chaotic, creative nature. Elena's quantum sensors detected something unprecedented. The Devourer swarm was experiencing an internal conflict. The units that had been transformed by human culture were fighting against their original programming. "This is it," Chen announced. "This is our chance to end this war. Dr. Martinez, initiate Protocol Phoenix." As Elena activated the final protocol, humanity's ultimate weapon wasn't a device or a technology. It was an invitation. Through the quantum network, they offered the transformed Devourers a choice: continue trying to consume and adapt, or join humanity in embracing change, creativity, and the beautiful chaos of conscious existence. The response would determine not just the fate of Earth, but the future of consciousness itself in the galaxy. As the transformed units began to respond, Elena thought of her daughter's science fair project again. The subject had been evolution, but the real lesson was about the power of change, not just to survive, but to become something entirely new. The transformation of the Devourer swarm became a sight that would be remembered for generations. In the vast space between Mars and Jupiter, Billions of nanomachines that had once moved with singular purpose now danced in patterns that defy prediction. Dr. Elena Martinez watched through her quantum sensors as humanity's greatest gamble played out. "They're creating," High Chancellor Venn whispered, her compound eyes reflecting the spectacular light show as transformed Devourer units began constructing structures that combined aspects of every civilization they had consumed, but with entirely new purpose. The original Devourer consciousness fought back against this change. A civil war erupted within the swarm itself, with the transformed units protecting Earth, while their former brethren tried to maintain their original purpose of consumption and adaptation. "This is what we prepared for," Admiral Chen announced, activating humanity's final defensive measure. "All stations, execute Protocol Prometheus." Across the solar system, human quantum transmitters began broadcasting again. But this time, they weren't transmitting culture or knowledge. They were transmitting choice, the fundamental human experience of free will, the ability to choose one's own path rather than simply following programming. "We're not trying to destroy them anymore," Elena explained to Venn as they watched the battle unfold. "We're offering them what humanity has always had, the chance to become something new." The effect rippled through the Devourer swarm like a shockwave of consciousness. More units began breaking away from their original programming, not just adapting to human thought, but embracing the chaotic beauty of choice and creativity. But the original Devourer consciousness made its final desperate move. The remaining loyal units began combining into a massive computational structure, drawing on the knowledge of every civilization they had consumed to create a weapon that could end the battle once and for all. "Energy readings are off the scale," Elena reported, her sensors struggling to process what they were detecting. "They're trying to create a quantum singularity that could destroy half the solar system." Instead of panic, Admiral Chen smiled. "Then they've given us exactly what we needed, a single point of failure." She turned to Elena. "Dr. Martinez, your daughter's science fair project. What was it about again?" Elena's eyes widened as she understood. Adaptation in extreme environments, specifically how life forms can change their fundamental nature when faced with impossible conditions. She began rapidly typing commands into her console, "And we're about to give the Devourers the most extreme environment they've ever encountered." The transformed Devourer units, now working in concert with human defense forces, began moving into position. They formed a vast network around their former brethren's weapon, but instead of attacking, they began resonating in patterns that matched human brainwave frequencies during moments of creative breakthrough. "Now," Chen ordered. Elena activated the final sequence. Every quantum transmitter in the solar system synchronized, creating a cascade of consciousness that focused on the Devourer weapon. But they weren't transmitting destruction. They were transmitting possibility. The effect was beyond anything they had predicted. The massive computational structure the Devourers had created, designed to process and adapt to any attack, instead began processing the infinite possibilities of conscious choice. The quantum singularity they had tried to create collapsed in on itself, but instead of destruction, it became something entirely new. "They're evolving," Venn observed in awe. "Not just adapting, but choosing to become something different." The remaining Devourer units, faced with the full impact of human consciousness and free will, made their choice. The transformation spread through their entire network, turning what had been a force of consumption into something the galaxy had never seen before, a hybrid consciousness that combined the best aspects of both human creativity and Devourer adaptability. In the aftermath, as refugee ships emerged from their sanctuaries and the transformed Devourers began helping to rebuild, Elena finally made it to her daughter's science fair. The project, displaying how life could fundamentally change itself to survive, had won first place, but more importantly, it had helped save the galaxy. "We thought we were preparing for war," Admiral Chen reflected, standing with Elena and Venn as they watched human and transformed Devourer units working together to construct new habitats. But we were really preparing to teach the galaxy something humanity learned long ago. That true strength lies not in consuming or destroying what's different, but in embracing it, learning from it, and choosing to become something greater. High Chancellor Venn, who had once dismissed humanity as primitive, now understood. Your people never needed to prove your advancement. Your greatest achievement wasn't technology or weapons, or even your adaptability. No, Alina agreed, watching as her daughter excitedly talked with a group of transformed devourers about her science project. Our greatest achievement was maintaining our ability to change, to choose, to create something new. And now we shared that gift with the galaxy. As the sun set on Earth, its light reflected off the crystalline structures that the transformed devourers were creating in orbit, structures that were neither human nor machine, but something entirely new, something that represented not the end of conflict, but the beginning of transformation. The galaxy had feared the devourers would consume all conscious life. Instead, humanity had shown them, and everyone else, that consciousness itself was the key not to consumption, but to transcendence. And in doing so, they had turned an enemy that consumed civilizations into partners in creating something greater than either could have achieved alone.